In this video, I'm going to share with you how to build a speaking business without falling into some of the pitfalls and traps that have captured many speakers over the years, including me. So in this video, I'm going to cover first some of the problems that people run into when they start their speaking business or many years down the line sometimes. And then I'm going to get into the solution to that, a way to reframe your mindset in order to change the way you look at speaking and give you the opportunity to make more money in a more scalable and sustainable way. And then finally, I'm going to get into some very specific strategies and tactics to build your speaking business more effectively. So let's start with some of the problems that I faced as a speaker early on in my career and that I see so many other speakers continuing to face. So the first is that speakers can often take on this gig mindset. The gig mindset is basically selling one gig and then the next gig and then the next gig. And we're always trying to get that next engagement and get paid to speak. Another problem that I found with speakers that's related to this gig mindset is this roller coaster revenues, these up and down revenues where basically 1 month we might have 4 gigs, 1 month we might have 1, another month we might have 10. And basically it's very difficult to have sustainability and consistency of the business. This was something I faced when I was doing this gig style speaking business. I was constantly networking, outreaching, writing proposals, trying to land gigs. And if I landed a lot of gigs in 1 month, then I'd feel really good about myself. And if I landed no gigs in a month, then I'd feel really bad about myself. And so not only was there this up and down in revenues, there was this up and down in my own attitude, in my own mood about myself and my business. Another problem that's kind of related to this gig mindset is that as speakers, we were always landing a gig and then having to travel to the gig, stay in a hotel, make our way to the gig, come back and track all these expenses and invoices. We ended up spending a big chunk of our lives on the road. Now, that might sound glamorous at the beginning. I know I thought it was glamorous at first, but actually it's not very glamorous to spend most of your life alone in a hotel room eating Uber Eats. And so the solution that I discovered to these issues was to stabilize the business model, was to change my mindset away from this gig model and instead to a more long-term, sustainable, consistent type of business model. Now, just to interject here for a moment, this is something that I've been now for the last few years been asked to teach at the National Speakers Association. I've been to almost every chapter in the country and spoken about how to re-envision your speaker business model so that you can stabilize revenues and get out of the gig mindset. So I'm just saying that so that you understand that there's credibility here because I've been teaching this to established, professional, Hall of Fame even speakers, and they've really gotten a lot of value about what I'm going to share right here with you for free. So the first thing to get out of this gig mindset, look at speaking in a whole new way. I want you to think about, instead of speaking as the end game, getting a speaking engagement, getting paid to speak, instead of thinking of that as the outcome that you're looking for, as the big end game here, what I want you to do is think about speaking at the beginning instead. So we're going to change the entire framework about how we look at your speaking business. And what we're looking at is speaking is the beginning of a relationship, is the beginning of a business opportunity rather than the end. Once you start looking at speaking as the beginning, it can change the entire way your business goes. So what I advocate doing is speaking becomes the front end of your business. Now, the front end in my world is your marketing. The front end is the beginning of a relationship with a client. And the front end always leads into what I call a breakthrough. So from the front end, and you can get paid for your front end, you can get paid to speak, but speaking is not the end game. Instead, what you're looking at speaking as is opening the door into this next step, a breakthrough. So that the people in your audience or the people who hired you to speak, the speaking is the door opener into the next step, which is some sort of breakthrough. So in the front end, you deliver some really juicy, valuable aha moment. You enlighten the audience about some huge blind spot that they didn't even know they had. You leave people in the audience like, wow, I want more. And then your next step is to offer them the opportunity for that more. By the way, I want to interject here because I work with a lot of speakers. I'm not talking about getting up on a stage and doing some big time sales pitch. I'm not talking about getting up on stage and making an offer into this next step. I'm simply talking about creating so much value, so much new awareness in that front end that people are asking you, what's next? How do I get more? Now, that next thing in the old speaker world was often go to the back of the room and buy one of my autographed books, or run to the back of the room and buy my $500 program or my workbook or whatever it is. What I advocate instead, you don't have to listen to me, you can take this idea and use it or throw it away, but what I advocate instead is invite people into a breakthrough experience. My favorite version of a breakthrough experience is a 3-day retreat. And by the way, I have a whole lot of videos, you can click up on the left for my playlist, a whole lot of videos about how to create breakthrough retreat experiences. How to create them, how to monetize them, how to fill them, how to sell them, how to market them, all of that stuff. My favorite is a 3-day breakthrough experience, and then from that leads into a big back end. And the big back end is really where the money is. The big back end is some sort of longer lasting, mastery level, ongoing program for the people who are the most committed. So let me just run through that again. The front end, which is the actual speaking engagement, which delivers an aha moment. The next step is a breakthrough for the people that are really engaged and really want to take that next step. You give them a big breakthrough in a compressed amount of time, i.e., a retreat. And then from that breakthrough deep dive experience, you offer them the opportunity to master whatever it is you do and to enter this mastery program for a whole year, which, this is important, drives monthly recurring revenue. And that gets you off the speaker roller coaster and puts you into a more steady, sustainable, and scalable model so that you can breathe. By the way, before I go any further with more juicy tidbits, I want to invite you to like and subscribe to my channel so that you find out anytime I drop a new video on these topics. So now that we've talked about the business model and the big picture framework to reframe the way you look at speaking, let's dive a little bit deeper. In order to get those front-end speaking engagements, whether they pay a ton of money or a little money, is kind of less relevant because now, even with a few engagements, you can enroll people into your breakthrough and your big back end. So you no longer need 100 or 200 speak engagements a year to have $1 million business. Now you actually only need a few speaking engagements in front of the best ideal audience. So let's talk about how to land speaking engagements. I'm a big believer that if you position yourself as a highly sought after expert, if people know that you're a thought leader and they're drawn to you and attracted to you, the speaking engagements will take care of themselves. So how do you become a thought leader? Well, that is a much bigger topic that I want to tackle in this short video, but I will invite you to check out my Thought Leader playlist. I have a whole playlist full of videos on how to position yourself as a thought leader. Things like publishing a book, creating a signature speech, creating a YouTube channel like the one that you're on right now. There are a whole bunch of different ways to position yourself as a thought leader, but here's the thing to remember. Thought leaders get booked to speak. Speakers who are not considered thought leaders, they have to generate the speaking engagements. They have to go out and find them. They have to pursue and follow up and track. Thought leaders, people come to them. Thought leaders just sit back and receive. So the investment that you make that takes time to position yourself as a thought leader ultimately will really help you to generate speaking engagements. So what does a thought leader need to generate speaking engagements? Well, one of the most important things, and you'll hear me talk a lot about this in my Thought Leader videos, is some sort of unique signature system, unique signature approach, signature framework, signature content, something that's uniquely yours that generates a very juicy and compelling outcome. And by the way, I have to say here, it's so important, don't knock off other people's stuff. I can't tell you how many times I've seen it that somebody comes on the scene and basically regurgitates somebody else's work. Speakers hate it and they will kill it. They will let clients know that you are not doing your own unique content. There's a lot of chatter in the speaking industry, and it's really important that you be honest and authentic and true to creating your own unique signature system rather than building off of or taking someone else's. Now, building a speaking business in the old model required a ton of outreach, follow-up, tracking, and proposal writing. And that's definitely an approach that you can take. But like I said, if you really want this to be easy and more joyful, then focus your time and energy on building yourself as a thought leader, writing that book, developing that signature system, doing that podcast, creating your YouTube channel, because those are the things that are more sustainable and lasting over time. If you have to constantly be outreaching and tracking and following up and writing proposals, you're never going to be able to get out of your business. You're going to always be at the mercy of how much activity you did that month or the prior months or 6 months before. So I highly recommend that while you do all that activity to get yourself started, really investing at least half of your time into building out that thought leader brand of attraction. Finally, one of the most effective things that I did to build my speaking business was create that stable recurring monthly revenue and then use some of that profitable revenue to invest in getting a virtual assistant to help me with the parts I hated. That was when my business really took off. Once I stopped doing the stuff that I hated doing and had somebody else do it. But here's the thing, I couldn't do that until I had that monthly recurring revenue secured. Why? Because with the roller coaster revenue, I never knew for sure if I was going to be able to pay that salary that month. I never knew what I was going to make 3 months out because it was all basically hand to mouth. But once I had that monthly recurring big back end revenue, I was able to breathe, slow down, and hire somebody else to do that admin, tracking, and all that outreach that I hated doing. I hope this video was valuable for you and helped you think in a new way about how to build your speaking business. If so, then I encourage you and invite you to set up a free discovery call with me if you want to explore if and how I might be able to help you set up and grow this type of business. The website that you can go to for that is superstaractivator.com/go. So I invite you to check out that website and go and set up a call with me soon.